Hey family, welcome to the Finance for Families podcast, the show that turns everyday money talk into family building power. Get comfortable because your journey to stronger family finances starts now. Let me ask you, or maybe I should say ask yourself, has your family ever sat down and really talked about money? You know, what we call real, open, raw conversations, not in a panic, not during a crisis, but just being intentional to plan, to learn, or just simply to understand each other better. Because for many families, talking about money feels like touching a live wire. You know, it's uncomfortable. For some, it's even a taboo. But the truth is, no amount of financial planning, budgeting, or goal setting together will work in the long term if we don't have open, honest conversations. Like, communication is the engine behind every family wealth. So let's unpack why we shy away from these conversations, what's at stake when we don't talk, and most importantly, how can we start doing better together? I'm your host, Linda Mak. I like to think of myself as that fire that is igniting those much needed family conversations on finances. Now, in this segment, we are talking about why is it so hard to talk about money. Let's look at the roadblocks that make it very hard for us to talk about money. And we realize they come from very far back in our history. One is like shame, Many of us are carrying guilt from past money mistakes we have done. It could be a failed business, a credit card debt, or simply not knowing what we think we should have known. That shame keeps us silent. The more we talk to people, the more they get to know about us, and the more these past money mistakes come out. Most of the time, we just opt to be quiet. I think the other one is also our upbringing, where we are told money isn't for children to worry about, or you never really saw your parents arguing, or even if they were arguing about money, it was in whispers and they're never explaining anything. We inherit these beliefs and we repeat them without thinking. I remember when I was in campus and students were striking. So my dad calls me and he goes like, who pays your fees? So I'm like, you do? Like, what conversation are we having? He's like, yeah, I'm hearing that people are going on strike. I do not want to see you there unless you pay your own fees. So, it was not a conversation that we were having. It was more of like a threat. Yeah, really. So we do need to think about some of these things that we expose our children to without really thinking of how it's going to affect them, or the conversations we think we are having with our children without seeing how it's going to affect them. If we can try and see beyond now into the future, I think we would have like a different way of communicating some of these things. As well, related to that is the secrecy. Some families operating with those don't ask, don't tell when it comes to money. I know most think that silence is protection, but silence doesn't protect anyone, especially not the children. We think we may be helping the kids by not talking about money, but what we are actually signaling is that money is not to be spoken about, which is really not true. Now, here is a statistic. According to research by Cambridge University, children's financial habits are set as early as 7 years. By that time, we might be thinking this is the time to start, but their financial habits are already in progress. So if we are keeping quiet at home, if we are not talking about money, if we are saying money is not for children to be talking about, even when they're that young, now that is a habit that we're setting. Those are the values that we're passing on to them. Now, I want us to think through what happens when you don't talk about money. Avoiding these money conversations might actually feel quite easy at the moment. But here's what that silence, that secrecy builds. One, we have misaligned goals because you have one person maybe who's saving, another one is spending. And then with that, frustrations grow. When we don't share our financial goals, you might find yourself, you're working against each other. We had a recent money, what we call conversations. It was a recorded episode. You can find it on my YouTube channel. One of the scenarios you are looking at is a situation where a husband and wife have sat down and they have agreed, yes, we would want to acquire this family home, and they go ahead and they get a mortgage. Now, the agreement is that the husband would be the one now to service the mortgage. Now, the wife, on the other hand, is earning quite well. She's taking care of the home. But what she does is with all the extra money she gets, She's buying expensive stuff for this house, her house, her home. She's working to make it at home. Meanwhile, the husband is struggling with the repayments. But because they're not talking, what he's doing is he's going out and he's trying to gamble so that, believing one day he's going to strike it rich and he'll be able to pay off this mortgage. And then they reach the point where, so you have all these expensive things in the house, you have missed mortgage repayments, and you realize it's because now you had not aligned on what exactly you are doing and why you are doing it. And that puts a very big strain in relationships. You have situations where one partner is drowning in quiet anxiety, or where the child sees tension but they don't understand. Now, silence about money issues can breed hidden stress within family members. A parent might be struggling with job loss or debt and they have anxiety, and that affects their well-being. It affects their relationship with the other family members. And especially when it comes to children, you'll realize children are very perceptive and can sense something is wrong. Even if they don't understand the specifics, this unspoken stress can actually create a tense and uncomfortable home environment. For me, I remember growing up, one of the ways, we never really talk about money, but one of the ways I would know that like my dad is stressed is he would come home, he would sit in his rocking chair and he would put on some Lingala music and just sleep there on the chair. Then we'd be like, oh my God, okay, so yeah, there's something going on. We also don't want to build a situation where children are financially blind. Yeah, because these children become adults. You don't want them to enter adulthood without the financial tools they need. Think your kids leaving home without knowing how to budget, how to manage their money, how to save, how to invest. It's like you're sending them out to the world, telling them, yeah, go now and live. But with no direction, with no map, they are more likely to make mistakes that could have been avoided with just little financial know-how. Yeah, family members make assumptions, or worse, they make poor decisions in the dark. You're there together, as I've said with the scenario for the conversations where one partner is making big purchases only to find out later that it's actually putting a strain on the family budget because the other partner is going through some financial stress. If you're not consulting, if you're not making these decisions, you're making them in the dark. There's very serious consequences for everyone. Everyone gets affected in the end. Yeah. I remember an experience being shared in one of the groups I'm in where this gentleman was saying in his case, when he lost the parents, they got to know that the parents had actually taken up debt on behalf to support a relative. Now, they only discovered it after they had lost the parents when they were sorting out the estate. Now, no plan had been made or communicated on how this relative was going to compensate. He was going to pay back the parents. Now, what followed was they were not just grieving. There was resentment, there was confusion, there was a lot of strain in family relationship, had to go through legal hurdles, and it didn't have to be that way. We cannot build generational wealth in silence. I always tell my family clients, we cannot build generational wealth in silence. We need to figure out how to start having this conversation so that we can all be working together. When I say that, I'm normally asked, so then how do we start? Do we come with put our spreadsheets out there and say, okay, now everyone's serious, let's start this conversation? No, it just starts. It needs to be like a nice, casual, curious question. Ask, if you could just say for one thing this year, what do you think it would be? Or maybe the young adults, you could be asking your parents, what's one thing you wish you'd learnt about money when you were younger? Just curious to know. Or maybe something like, what's one financial decision that we as your parents, you feel we have made that you are like, yeah, good job. Yeah, we are proud of you there. So, when you think about these questions, these are questions that open the door to conversations without pressure. Now, they invite storytelling. They invite us to share the values that we hold and we want it passed on. You get to share, your dreams, your regrets, your goals. And in that space as well, you also get to know your children's or your parents' dreams and aspirations in a very natural and loving way. Yeah. So one of my clients, a mom told me she was sharing with a 10-year-old daughter. Yeah. So for you, if you could do anything, what do you think? What would you want us to do? Then the daughter said, I would want us to take a vacation where we can go all of us together so that dad doesn't have to work late. And she says she felt very emotional. She shared with her husband, and they got very intentional about now looking for a holiday destination where they will be able to go. And of course, even him, he was like, okay, I'm going to be more present. Because I'm married to a techie, I know a few places here and there that you can be able to go that, discourage a lot of electronic use, no TV in the rooms and all that. So I shared a few. And I got her and I told her, yes, you'd never have known that that's her thinking if you hadn't asked. Yeah. And I like the fact that children are usually very, very honest. So in a family setup, asking your children, they will be very honest with you. That honest perspective is, I think, something even us as adults need to adopt a lot more. So let me try answer this, because every time I talk about, let's have open money conversations, I get asked, so money is very sensitive. How do we create a safe, judgment-free space? Because let's be honest, not everyone is eager to talk about money. No, you might want to have these conversations, but you'd have a partner who immediately you start, you feel like they're shutting down. Or kids who will roll their eyes and like, oh no, why? Yeah. And for me, that's why how you talk about this is as important as what you say. Yeah. A few pointers from me on how you can be able to create this safe space. One is no blame, no shame. No blame, no shame. The past is for learning, not judging. So approach the past as a place for learning. Avoid bringing up mistakes just to point fingers. Focus instead on what can be done better moving forward. So we are here. What can we be able to do better? Not you did, you said, we are here because of you. And then use I statements. I feel like if you express your feelings without accusing others, like we're having a conversation, you say, I feel stressed when you don't have a plan for our expenses, So it's more constructive than you're always bad with money. So, and I think something else is be curious. Ask open questions, yeah? And ask open questions more than you give advice. Ask genuine, thoughtful questions and then listen. Just something like, what worries you the most about money when you talk about money? Instead of trying to say, we need to talk about money because Coach Linda has said we have to talk about money. So listen. Listening is very important. Don't listen to answer, but listen to understand where they're coming from as well. Again, it's always good to remember that money is deeply emotional. If someone is feeling ashamed or anxious or defensive, it's always good to first acknowledge the emotions before you start delving into the numbers. It might take a few sessions of just making the environment nice and conducive for the conversation. It's not a rush. Yeah, take time before you have those conversations. Acknowledge, be empathetical towards the people you're having the conversations with. For me, I think of it as gardening. The first conversation might be very awkward. The second gets a bit easier. Over time, you're cultivating a beautiful garden of understanding. And that's how money confidence grows. Yeah. And it's good if we are able to grow it together. So my encouragement is, let's create something, maybe call it like a money talk time, and we make it a routine. When can we be able to have it? Maybe on a monthly basis. Just nice, relaxed. We're having tea, some snacks, a nice comfy place we can sit, no screens, no pressure. Just talk through, let's review our goals. Let's take time to celebrate the small wins. Where are we stuck? What challenges are we have? We can talk through upcoming decisions like, school fees and investments or any savings that we are looking to do. For the ones we are involving the kids in a family setup, give them time to also share what they think, give ideas, destination, things that we can do. Can we go out, have a picnic, make some food? It needs to be like a nice conversation. It's open, honest conversations. We are talking to one another in a nice, relaxed environment. I think you get the most out of it when you structure it like that. Because I've seen over time, families that talk about money regularly make better financial decisions. Yeah, they feel more aligned, more confident, and they're more prepared for life curveballs. So I think to wrap up, I'm usually very big on small steps. Yeah, it doesn't have to be something big. So this is where I encourage you. Start small, ask one question, share one feeling, celebrate one small win. Because by now I hope we have realized that when families talk about money, they grow stronger together. And not just financially, but emotionally too. And we can only get to those points. We can only improve. Our conversations can only get better the minute we start them. Thank you.
That's a wrap for today's episode of the Finance for Families podcast. I'm Linda Makatiani. Grateful as always to be part of your family's financial journey. If you found value in today's episode, show some love by subscribing, leaving a review, or sharing it with your loved ones and other families. Here at Finance for Families, we believe every family has the power to build wealth. one honest conversation at a time. Until next time, keep talking money, keep growing together, and keep building your family legacy.